This millionaire is robbing a bank, but oddly, after snatching $500,000 in cash, he shows no intention of fleeing. He seems to be deliberately stalling for time, engaging in small talk with the bank manager, chatting about this and that. Not until the police arrive does he surrender calmly and composedly, as if all this was part of his plan all along. This handsome man is none other than Michael, the heartthrob and originator of the Prison Break, who has charmed thousands of young women. The greatness of the American TV series Prison Break needs no further explanation. It can be said that no other show has created such a frenzy, and for many, it was their introduction to American TV dramas. In court, Michael forgoes all defense. Veronica, a defense lawyer with a deep connection to Michael, can't understand why a talented graduate from a prestigious school like Michael, who obviously isn't lacking money, would do something as foolish as robbing a bank. Furthermore, he relinquishes all rights, solely focused on getting incarcerated. What could Michael's true purpose be? Ultimately, the court sentences Michael to 5 years in a maximum security prison. Michael has only one request: to be incarcerated as close to home as possible, namely the notorious Fox River State Penitentiary. At this moment, Veronica finally guesses his real intention, hearing the judge's agreement to his request. A subtle smile appears on Michael's lips. On his first day in prison, Michael meets the fearsome head of the guards, Captain Bellick. Here, next to the warden, he wields the greatest power. Anyone who dares to cross Bellick is in for a fate worse than death. Michael's cellmate is the warm-hearted Sucre, serving time for armed robbery and due for release in 16 months. Sucre shows him around the prison. This old man holding a cat is D.B. Cooper. 30 years ago, he had $1.5 million and has refused to admit it ever since. This black man runs the prison's underground market. For the right price, he can get you anything. In this prison, the law of the jungle prevails, with the black and white gangs at constant odds. It's best not to provoke them, but Michael seems uninterested in all this. He only cares about one person: Lincoln Burrows. Sucre is momentarily stunned but still introduces Michael to this highly dangerous individual. Allegedly, this man murdered the vice president's brother and is scheduled for the electric chair in a month. As a man facing death, Lincoln is capable of anything, making him the most dangerous man in prison. The guards keep Lincoln isolated, only letting him out for labor on Wednesdays. Curious, Sucre wonders why Michael is interested in such a person on his first day. However, Michael's response leaves him dumbfounded.
Because he's my brother.
The next day, during yard time, Michael approaches the prison boss, John Abruzzi. John was once a mafia boss. He manages the prison factory by bribing the guards and enjoys certain privileges within the prison. This prison factory allows inmates to do menial tasks like painting walls and cleaning toilets, which, though grueling, is better than being cooped up in a cell. Many inmates are desperate to get in, and Michael's brother, Lincoln, is working there. To get close to his brother, Michael approaches John, hoping he can help him get in. After finishing his words, Michael took out an origami crane and placed it on the table. John was immediately baffled. "Do you think I'm a teenage girl? You think a paper crane will get you a green light from me?" he thought. So John unceremoniously asked his men to kick Michael out. Michael was casually chatting with Sucre in their cell, when unexpectedly, Warden Pope summoned Michael for a talk. Sucre sensed trouble brewing. In this place, no one had ever caught Pope's attention unless Michael had piqued his interest in some way. It turned out that Pope had already investigated Michael's background. A top talent from the world-renowned University of Chicago, with outstanding grades, and after graduation, a renowned structural engineer. Pope couldn't fathom why someone like Michael would rob a bank. However, Michael simply made a vague comment.
Everyone turns up one sooner or later.
Seeing that there was nothing to ask, Pope didn't beat around the bush. There are just a few months left until his 40th wedding anniversary with his wife, and he has been building a model of the Taj Mahal as a symbol of his love for her. But the more he worked on it, the more he realized it was about to collapse.
That's where I was hoping you could be of assistance. And for the favor, I can offer you 3 days of work a week in here, and it'll keep you off the yard.
Normally, currying favor with Pope was something both inmates and guards would jump at, but Michael flatly refused. He had more important things to do, and wouldn't waste his time on this.
Then we're through here. Guard!
Meanwhile, John received a call from his subordinates outside. They had received an anonymous letter with a photo of a key witness who could incriminate them. Along with a paper crane, the police had the witness under secret protection, and though they wanted to eliminate this witness, They couldn't find the location. John remembered Michael and the paper crane he had brought 2 days earlier. It was clear that Michael must know the witness's location. John immediately went to find him, but Michael wasn't going to easily divulge anything. A fight broke out between them. In such a place, there's no such thing as self-defense. Any retaliation would lead to solitary confinement. John was also starting to panic. If Michael got thrown into solitary, he wouldn't be able to get the witness's address, and he would be facing the death penalty. So, he agreed to get Michael into the prison factory, but Pope was unusually angry about this incident and immediately declared that Michael would be in solitary for 90 days. By then, Lincoln would have already been executed. Having no other choice, Michael agreed to repair the Taj Mahal model for Pope.
You want it by when, June?
Yes.
Then we better get started. Wouldn't you say?
With both sides of the story taken care of, all he had to do was wait for Wednesday's group work so he could see his brother. Next on Michael's list to approach was Sarah, the prison's female doctor. Michael had already investigated Sarah and found out she was the daughter of the current governor, working in the prison due to a fallout with her father, doing the job she loved. Michael, under the pretense of being diabetic, came here to inject insulin, chatting with Sarah to build rapport, while occasionally glancing out the window to plan his escape route. The problem was that he didn't actually have diabetes, and excessive insulin injections caused his hands to tremble uncontrollably. Even Sarah began to doubt whether he really had diabetes, so she suggested doing a checkup the next time Michael came. To address this urgent issue, Michael approached Benjamin, seeking pills that could counteract the insulin. After receiving the money, Benjamin started arranging for it. Finally, Wednesday arrived, and Michael got to see his brother Lincoln as he hoped. While changing clothes, Michael asked Lincoln if he really killed the vice president's brother. Lincoln insisted he had never killed anyone and was framed. Knowing his brother never lies, Michael shared his plan for today. Yes, Michael had painstakingly entered the prison to break out with his brother. Lincoln warned Michael not to take risks for him, as even if they got out, they would struggle without money. Michael didn't respond but just looked at Charles, who was taking off his shoes. Lincoln added that even with money, they would need someone to help them live under new identities.
They just don't know it yet.
But escaping from such a high security level 1 prison was not as easy as just talking about it. Coincidentally, the prison had undergone renovations a few years ago, and the contracting company was Michael's employer. Therefore, Michael was very familiar with all the planning and structural diagrams of the prison, but how could he possibly know every corner of such a massive prison? That wasn't a problem for him. 2 months before entering prison, he had all the route maps hidden in his tattoos. To most people, it might look like a common demonic tattoo, but if you stare at it for a few seconds, you'll realize that the tattoo actually hides a complex prison blueprint. And this was the key to Michael's escape plan. Knowing every part of the prison structure, the next step was to acquire the tools needed for the escape. Michael took out a mirror reflecting a series of reversed English letters, which he copied onto a sheet of paper. During yard time, he sneakily explored something on a bench. When he found a bolt of a specific model, Michael finally stopped. He had investigated before entering prison and found that the material and diameter of this type of bolt were perfect for crafting into an essential tool for escape. And these bolts were used on the benches in the yard. Michael pulled out a coin and calmly started his operation. Just then, the love-hated psychopathic killer T-Bag, accompanied by his cronies, approached head-on.
Please, sit.
It turned out Michael was sitting right in T-Bag's territory, but instead of telling Michael to get up, T-Bag looked at Michael with lust and told him, "If you hold my pocket, I guarantee no one in this prison will dare to mess with you."
Looks to me you already got a girlfriend.
I got a whole nother pocket over here.
But Michael firmly rejected him, which completely infuriated T-Bag. T-Bag, with a dark expression, chased Michael away, leaving behind the partially twisted bolt that was exposed. The next day during yard time, Michael returned to the spot and successfully retrieved the bolt. However, T-Bag, who was passing by, spotted him. Michael had no choice but to hand over the bolt to T-Bag. When the guards arrived, T-Bag pretended to stretch, surreptitiously passing the bolt to his crony, narrowly avoiding the guards' questioning. Meanwhile, A major racial clash was brewing in the prison between the black and white gangs, each waiting for an opportunity to strike a fatal blow. Teabag, as a member of the white gang, was actively preparing for battle. Michael seized this opportunity to sneak into Teabag's cell in search of the stolen bolt. Unfortunately, he was once again caught by Teabag, who arrived suddenly. However, Michael reacted swiftly and approached Teabag without changing his expression.
I want in.
Their conversation was noticed by Benjamin from across the way. He had always thought Michael was neutral, which is why he agreed to help him get the medicine. Until Michael joined the white gang, Benjamin, with the medicine he had procured, lured Michael to a secluded corner, where several black inmates immediately surrounded him. Despite Michael's explanations, Benjamin refused to believe him. "Since you've joined the enemy, you can forget about getting the medicine I got for you."
You chose the wrong side.
Now Michael was completely doomed. Not only did he not get the bolts, but he lost the medicine that was coming to him. The usually calm and collected Michael couldn't help but feel a surge of anger. Even the most perfect plan can be ruined by the most uncontrollable factor, people. Back in his cell, Michael pondered his next move when suddenly, a warning to count the inmates echoed from downstairs. At that moment, a white inmate walked out of the line against instructions. Michael knew this was the signal for the start of the racial war. As expected, the inmates surged forward and began fighting. Innocent Michael was thrown down the stairs in the chaos. During the turmoil, Teabag's crony rushed towards Michael. He had been annoyed by the handsome Michael for some time. Fearing his position in Teabag's heart was threatened, he picked up the bolt and stabbed viciously at Michael, but the smaller man was no match for Michael. Michael overpowered him and snatched the bolt back. Just as the crony prepared to attack again, a black inmate stood in front of him. The crony fell into Michael's arms, and this scene was once again witnessed by Teabag. Thinking it was Michael who had acted viciously, Teabag advanced, ready to kill him. Michael had no time to explain as he hurriedly escaped back to his cell amidst the smoke bombs released by the guards. Although he finally had the bolt in hand, he had now thoroughly offended Teabag.
You got nowhere to run. You're trapped in that little hole of yours. Trapped like a pig I'm gonna slaughter.
An origami crane, something even a primary school student could fold, became a tool for escape in Michael's hands. While the prison doctor wasn't looking, he placed the crane into the medical office's drain. The paper crane traveled downstream and soon reached the drainage ditch below the yard. This indicated that the drainage system connected the medical office to the prison yard. Michael also noticed a thick electrical cable outside the medical office, leading directly outside the prison, meaning the medical office was a necessary exit for the escape. Michael knew that he needed to maintain a good relationship with Sarah to get the key to the medical office and then remove the security window to escape. Thus, he visited her under the pretense of needing insulin injections for diabetes, casually chatting to build rapport. The problem was he didn't actually have diabetes, and the excessive insulin caused his hands to tremble. Arousing Sarah's suspicion, Michael approached Benjamin in the prison to get pills that counteracted insulin. Benjamin, realizing he had misunderstood Michael after learning of his feud with Teabag, returned the pills to Michael, and Michael finally passed Sarah's test. However, escaping with his brother Lincoln from such a conspicuous place as the yard was not practical. He needed to create a passage from the cell to the medical office. When alone, Michael continuously ground down the bolt he had retrieved from the bench. Soon, the bolt was shaped into a hexagon. He rolled up his sleeve and compared the hexagonal bolt with the tattoo on his arm. The sizes matched almost perfectly. Michael inserted the bolt into the basin's plug hole and gently twisted it, successfully unscrewing it. The plan seemed perfect, but making a hole large enough for a person to crawl through in the cell was a monumental task. Moreover, he had a cellmate named Sucre, and digging a hole under the same roof without Sucre noticing was impossible. The only option was to involve Sucre in the plan. But first, he needed to test Sucre's trustworthiness. To test Sucre, Michael hid a phone in plain sight of Sucre during a work detail and then had his brother Lincoln report that he saw someone hiding a phone, implying Sucre. You know, possession of a mobile phone in prison can add up to 2 years to your sentence. Unexpectedly, although Sucre appeared simple-minded on the surface, he was very loyal in character. Despite the risk of being thrown into solitary confinement, he did not reveal that Michael was the owner of the phone. In return, Sucre let Michael lend him his mobile phone to call his girlfriend, but the phone was just soap with black paint on it. Feeling tricked, Sucre angrily confronted Michael about his intentions. Michael then revealed his escape plan, including the idea of bringing Sucre along. Sucre was furious. with less than 16 months left on his sentence, a loving girlfriend outside, and a bright future ahead. Why would he want to escape with someone facing over 50 years? Not wanting to be involved but also unwilling to report Michael, Sucre requested a transfer to another cell. Meanwhile, John's former mafia associate visited the prison again, this time bringing John's children. He warned John for the last time that if he didn't find out where the witnesses were, his wife and children would be in bad shape before they came in. The threat left John restless, realizing that hard tactics wouldn't work on Michael and he needed to think of something else. On the other hand, Teabag has prepared an incredibly sharp serrated knife to avenge his cronies. Knowing Michael had a feud with Teabag, John lured Teabag to a room and beat him up in front of Michael.
Talks too much. You and I need to have a conversation.
From that moment, John officially joined Michael's escape plan. Rather than be threatened in prison forever, it was better to escape and deal with their enemies. He told Michael he would cover him in prison and get him anything he needed, but in return, Michael had to take him along in the escape. With this, Michael's path in prison became much easier, but unexpectedly, Captain Bellick brought a new cellmate for Michael, Charles, who was transferred from a mental hospital due to lack of space. Charles used to be in a mental institution, but he was transferred here because he had no place to live. Now the problem was significant. Michael either had to include Charles in the plan or dig the hole only while Charles was asleep. But the world of a mentally ill person is unpredictable. Michael had to dig at night. One night, when everyone else was asleep, he quietly got up to dig, but when he turned around, he found Charles staring at him with penetrating eyes.
What's your problem?
I got a neuroanatomic lesion affecting my reticular activating system.
What does that mean?
It means I don't sleep. At all.
Michael felt utterly hopeless. Was this a torture sent by fate? Did Charles never sleep?